All right, welcome to another episode of Give 'em the Business. I'm Troy Evans, and today I have Michael Russell, CEO of H.J. Russell and Company, in the house. Welcome to the show.
All right, thank you, Troy. Happy to be here with you.
I've been looking forward to having you on the show for a while, and then COVID hit and put everything in delay, but we're finally able to have some safe social distancing in the studio.
Yes. Happy to be here. Beautiful day in Atlanta.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So I wanted to just dive right in and learn more about you and your success with as CEO of H.J. Russell and Company. But I think in order to really do that, right, we have to go back to your upbringing and the establishment of H.J. Russell, who and Company, and your father, who was a civil rights icon in and of itself. And what I'm interested in learning from you is what was it like growing up in a house in which your father was playing such a pivotal role in the civil rights era and the individuals, the Martin Luther Kings that were coming over to your house, the Andrew Youngs that were coming over to your house, etc. Because it was where they went to get away from it all. What was it like with you growing up in that environment?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And just to put some perspective, I was born in 1965. So Dr. King was assassinated in 68.
Right.
So I was a young person, obviously, but I do remember vividly one time Dr. King being at the office and he was with his kids and, I was getting to know them, but, I didn't really understand, who he was, obviously. And I think one thing about my parents that I'll always appreciate is that they didn't really put us in any kind of special bubble or special perspective. We looked at people as people, and I didn't, so I really didn't understand the significance of what was going on at the time. But as I got older, I began, to recognize the impact, my father was playing, the impact our organizations and just the importance of that. But frankly, growing up, we were like any other kids. We had a basketball court in the back, so it was the neighborhood court, and we would as you would say, I think we played 3 on 3, but you might be 3 or 4 deep, to get your next look if you lose. So it was, it was just we were part of the fabric of the neighborhood, and my parents were very open to us just being a part of that. So I kind of looked at myself as blessed to grow up in a middle class neighborhood in Atlanta, and I still got a lot of good friends from there. So I look at it and reflect back on. I'm appreciative that my parents kind of let us be kids and not be treated any kind of special way. We had to go out and do what we did, ride my bike with the rest of the kids and just do what we did, and it really, I think it gave me a sense of self and a sense of being able to relate to everybody that I appreciate today.
And that's the Collier Heights neighborhood, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I'm familiar with that neighborhood, and one of the I have friends that I went to Morehouse with whose grandparents and parents grew up in that neighborhood. One of the things that was amazing to me about that neighborhood is it was the well-to-do black professionals that went out on their own and got the land and built the homes and really carved out a community that I don't know existed in too many other cities in the country at that point in time. Uh, Growing up in that environment, what did that mean to you?
I always appreciated the fact that I was in this black neighborhood with a lot of black professionals. And in fact, you might remember from Morehouse, Dr. Mapp, who was a math teacher. I found out later he was, well known, respected, but he was tough at Morehouse. But he lived across the street. So that, we had a police lieutenant who lived down the street, and doctors, as you say, and dentists and so forth. So it was, I look back and I was very blessed to live in that neighborhood. And frankly, I moved into that house when my kids were 3 and 4. So I raised my family
Right.
in that homes because I knew I appreciated what that neighborhood meant. I knew it would help to ground my young men. And it's been great to have been in that house for 18 years and raised my sons too. So it was a really special time, and it was a lot of young people. I good friends who went to Morehouse, who grew up in the neighborhood, and so it was really a special time, and I'm really blessed to have been a part of Collier Heights. And just a little history, as far as I know, in Atlanta, we don't know of another African American neighborhood where the black people bought the land and they developed the homes. Most communities in Atlanta that we know of, Cascade is a perfect area, was really white,
Hmm.
and it evolved to black during the white flight years of the '60s, '70s, and so forth. So, but Collier Heights was always black,
Hmm.
and which is very unique. And our home was built. My dad built our home in '58.
Hmm.
So that was a unique. I've grown to appreciate that more,
Right.
obviously, with time.
And Michael Lomax has that property now. Is that
Yes, he
correct?
does.
So I think we should just make it a rule that it has to stay in some, black leadership hands
Yes,
for
well,
generations to come.
yeah, and we're very blessed. Michael, with his appreciation of history, we're very blessed that he does own the home now.
Right, right. And you are the youngest of three siblings,
Right.
which I would imagine. I was an only child growing up in a single mother household. I would have to imagine that not only is there the pressure of who your father was and the success that he was having, but then you're the youngest and in a set of three, and trying to maybe carve out your own niche and who you're going to be and whatnot. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, fortunately, again, we were never in a situation where we were expected to do X or Y. We were just expected to be productive, to work hard, to appreciate the value of a dollar, and to do what you're going to do. So, from that perspective, I always felt that we all had our own lanes. And fortunately, I was pretty independent as a youngster, and I think I kind of blazed my own path. I always, as I tell people when we were growing up, I always had a summer job, even if I didn't want one. I always had a job during Christmas break, even when I didn't want one. During those 4 weeks of Christmas, I was working,
Right.
and it came, so I came to appreciate our business and what we did, and I liked it, and I was fortunate to to take that path through college and eventually come back to work for the family company. But I think growing up as the youngest was cool. I learned from my brother and sister things not to do, and I think by the time I came along too, my parents were kind of tired of being too strict,
Right.
and I just kind of went with the flow, and
Right.
fortunately, I turned out okay.
Right. Right. And you talk about you always had a summer job, or even during the winter break, you had a job. I don't have near the success in my life right now that your parents had, and yet I struggle with trying to figure out how to ingrain a good work ethic in my children who are young right now. But I'm already thinking, how do I make sure that I'm not giving them too much and what have you. And your father was notorious for not just giving you all anything, but making sure you all earn the dollars. Talk to me about how you learned those lessons, and what were some of those jobs you had during the summer, and what did they teach you?
Well, I think I mean, his own personal philosophy was one of hard work. I mean, he came from that. He's as you know his story, he was an entrepreneur at a very young age, and he always believed in you got to put in the effort, and if you do what you say you're going to do, 9 times out of 10 things are going to work out well. So for us as kids, I mean, that one, my mother. I mean, to me, it's a team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I find is important. And fortunately, my wife and I are equally yoked around that too. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my mother was on the same page. So,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't go to one or the other and think there was a soft spot. They were a solid unit.
Right.
So they instilled upon all of us the value of hard work. And I mean, I remember as riding my bike to which you wouldn't let your kids do now, probably about a mile or so. We owned apartment complexes not far from where we lived, and as a 10, 11, and 12-year-old, I would ride my bike to these apartment complexes and do stuff like clean out apartments. I would sweep the breezeways, sweep the sidewalk. So I was part of the maintenance staff when I was really in middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember that. And so it was just always a spirit of, if you're able, you're going to contribute, and somehow to this family, and that's just the lessons that he taught us that I'm appreciative of today. Even though at the time I didn't always like, having to get up. I didn't always like seeing my friends go to the pool and I was going to work.
Right.
But that's where it is.
Do you have a particular memory of one of those jobs that stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I remember, and this was more when I was in high school, and this was during Christmas break, and the building now stands in the corner of Boulevard and it's on Boulevard and Ralph McGill.
Mm-hmm.
It's a senior tower. But I was working. I came home for Christmas break, and we were pouring concrete. And I just remember I was a part of the process of vibrating the concrete. You have to pick up this big piece of machinery and move it around to all of the different concrete pours. And I just remember that first night I went home and I slept for about 12 hours that night. And I just remember how it was it's hard work. I mean, construction work is hard work, and it's something I appreciate. But I do remember that moment and just thinking, and not just thinking it was a hard day at the job site,
Right.
and I felt that evening at 16 years old.
And did you ever feel that maybe you shouldn't be on those sites or doing that work, or did you feel that did you appreciate it in the moment, or did you think, I should have it a little bit easier right now? My
Yeah,
dad owns a company.
yeah. I think I might have been. I never thought because he owned the company. I mean, it was just because I didn't want to do it.
Right.
You know, right? It was just. I mean, I remember having some thoughts, but never. I guess I always appreciated the opportunity that I did get to meet a lot of interesting people when I worked at these times, and there's some relationships I built, and so I never regretted it. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I would certainly have moments where I was like, damn, I don't want to do this today,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, it was never something that I had any bad feelings about.
Right. And so you're working, doing your summers, you're getting through high school, you starting to realize the importance your father's company and he himself is playing in the Atlanta community. You decide to go away to college, and you don't follow in your father's footsteps to go to Tuskegee. You go to Virginia to go to school. Talk to me about what led to that decision, and what did you take away from that experience?
Well, for one, I knew I wanted to leave Atlanta. I mean, I knew at that point that one, I just wanted that exposure. I was independent enough to say I knew I wanted to get away, and I knew too that the Russell name was a big name in Atlanta. If I went to Morehouse, if I went to Georgia Tech, I mean, I would still be in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So Virginia was a great school. I was able to, and it wasn't too far away. It was like an 8-hour drive. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, and I was fortunate. I got into UVA at that time, and it was just a great experience. I mean, we've already talked about one person I met. It was a great um, melting pot, particularly of black people at that time from up and down the East Coast. And I really met some quality people while I was there, and it just helped me grow. And at that time, that was pre social media, pre internet. That was you just called people or wrote letters. So
Mm-hmm.
I was up there just as Michael Russell. People didn't know my family.
Right.
You didn't. So I was up there as Michael Russell and was able to kind of develop my own relationships on that basis, which to me was a great learning experience and growth for me personally.
And did you always know that you wanted to eventually get back into the family business, or was there moments where you were thinking about maybe considering some other careers?
Well, I always felt I would be back in the family business. I enjoy construction. I enjoy the business of building and seeing that finished product. But I was a believer though of working outside of the family business, which I did for 3 years before I came back to H.J. Russell and
Mm-hmm.
Company. So I think that experience is something I tell people with family businesses. I think is good for the next generation to get exposure outside of the family business.
Mm-hmm. And when you did finally come back, to work at the company, what was your first job that was going to start you on your career trajectory to CEO now?
Well, I went out to work on a construction site, and I still have a guy who still works with us, and he laughs at me operating this 90 pound jackhammer out on the job site, and how it was handling me.
Right.
But we still have some laughs about that. So I was out on a job working with the crew, executing the work. So I kind of started at the at the bottom level for somebody coming out of school.
hmm you mentioned it a minute ago, but one thing that I'm impressed with H.J. Russell and Company is the fact that it is a second generation company right now, and from my understanding, it's probably going to be a third generation at some point in the future. And you don't see that a lot in with black companies. Um, why do you think that is, and what needs to be done in order to allow uh, companies and generational wealth to be passed on?
Well, first, one, entrepreneurship is not easy, and it's not a path, and it hasn't necessarily been the easiest path for many people. I mean, getting a job was easier,
Mm-hmm.
for many people. So entrepreneurship, as you know, brings its own risk that you got to be ready for. And I think, as far as how do you continue that legacy, to me, again, your kids have to understand what you're doing. You have to give them the latitude to either be in or out of the business, but expose them and just let them know what the opportunities are. I mean, they have to get the proper education. I couldn't. I'm not saying I couldn't, but I probably wouldn't be in the seat without a college education. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you look at just the the aspect of how you move up, you got to have certain credentials as you move up. And I think it's just a matter of one, having a company that you expose the kids to, you help them appreciate the effort and work that goes into it, but also help them appreciate the benefits that come with controlling your own destiny. That's what my dad used to say about entrepreneurship. I mean, you get to control your own destiny, and again, I mean, you gotta be built for that to want to do that, because it's a lot that goes into being responsible for a payroll
Mm-hmm.
every other week. But I just think it's exposure, Troy. I think exposing your children, and for them to understand the value of entrepreneurship, and for them to understand that this is something that where you can control your own destiny, as opposed to having somebody else control your destiny.
And how do you deal with the aspect that you all had to face in the sense that it wasn't just an only child, right? You've got two other siblings, so how are you? How do you determine who's the best fit for what roles? And I know that you all have a role to play in HJ Russell and Company, but how does that get mapped out? How do you determine who's the best fit?
Well, I mean, I think that's a great question. Fortunately, again, my father was diverse enough in his entrepreneurial ventures that we all had lanes that we could run in, and not run over or run into each other. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's frankly. And I've always been in the construction space, and that's something I've enjoyed. Jerome's been more in the real estate, and Danita has always worked in our concessions. She's been there for 30 years
Mm-hmm.
working and growing our concessions business. So fortunately, we were diverse. That's one thing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we were diverse in our business offerings, and we all enjoyed what we did. So and fortunately, I mean, we do get along. I mean, you definitely have families where family members are in a business, and the next generation don't talk to each other.
Right.
I mean, you have all kind of things. So
Right.
so fortunately, we get along, and we all were able to kind of grow professionally in our own lanes, and that allowed us to be successful.
And for the listeners who aren't as familiar with H.J. Russell and Company, talk about what those lanes of business operations are, and um, the role that you're responsible for in
Sure,
that.
sure. Well, H.J. Russell, we're approaching 70 years old, and we are effectively a commercial construction and a real estate company. So we have four distinct lines of business. One is commercial construction, where we're a builder. Um, Two is what we call program management, working on behalf of owners, managing major capital projects. We're the project manager. We're not the builder, but we're overseeing the building design and all the aspects of getting the project done. We're also real estate developers, where where you're ultimately the one with the vision and responsible for getting taking a vision to reality on a site. And last but not least, property management, where we are most of our property management has been in the apartment um, lane, and we're one of the largest managers of affordable housing in Georgia. We manage about 2,500 units in Georgia. So those are the four main lanes of business of H.J. Russell and Company.
And what size, from a revenue standpoint, is AJ Russell right now?
Well, we were at one pre-recession we were 250 million. We're now about 125. Due to the recession, and we're growing though. We really, had some challenges like many companies, but now we're creeping back up, and excited about the business and on what our prospects are moving forward.
Hmm. And so, when you ascend into the position of CEO, which you hold now, what are the challenges that you immediately faced, and what values had you been taught that allowed you to tackle them successfully?
Okay. Well, I have to, if I step back and say I was named CEO in 2003,
Hmm.
one of the things I appreciate my father doing was that he moved out of the building. I mean,
Hmm.
at that point he said, "Look, I'm semi-retiring. I do that with quotes." And he moved out of the building into another location where he effectively became the head of our family office,
Hmm.
and he had some other things that he wanted to get done, but that was important because symbolically it sent a message to the rest of the team. Hey, Herman is handing the leadership of this company to Michael.
Hmm.
So that was one thing. He allowed me to take that leadership, and when people came to him, which inevitably that happens if you still have a founder and a person like him, people going to still come to him, but he redirected them back to me.
Hmm.
So that's important. I mean, so he didn't um, unintentionally undercut my leadership.
Hmm.
I mean, that's number one. And two, I had been in the business. I mean, I came in the business in 1990, so I had been in the business 13 years with H.J. Russell, and had I think I had gained the respect of many of the people in the business. So I had relationships, and people respected me, and then again I was able to sit at the foot of Herman Russell. I mean, what better mentor to understand leadership and how to lead than to be able to watch him, all the years that I was blessed to be able to do that.
Hmm. You mentioned that not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur, and one of the things you said was, it's a lot of responsibility that comes with meeting that payroll,
Right.
on a biweekly basis. Talk to me a little bit about the uniqueness of it being a black owned company, right? With those responsibilities, right? Because I think sometimes corporations don't sometimes get the well deserved reputation of maybe not having a conscience, right?
Yeah.
And you have to differentiate between what's good for the bottom line, but still being a responsible employer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great point. I think as far as being a black company and being able to grow it, well, one, that means a few different things. Obviously, we're a black owned company. Our company's owned by the Russell family, but obviously, but we also value and celebrate the diversity of our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we think that's important, but we do have a workforce that is predominantly black.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's responsibility with that. One, from a couple of fronts. One, obviously, as a business that has been around as long as we have, I take personal responsibility and pride in being able to see people who work for Russell and they're able to grow their families and see their families develop and grow. And I know the key financial resource for that is H.J. Russell and Company. I take personal pride in that. I think with black people, you always have to make sure you keep that level of professionalism. Sometimes when we're together and working together, you have to you can't let it get too familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Where the business and the relationship, well, where the relationship trumps you getting the business done.
Mm-hmm.
And I find in our environments that's just a culture you have to maintain. And it's as in some of the roles that you have, that's something that you have to work on intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that culture of professionalism and execution is there. So, and I think too, everybody needs to, um nobody in a company should feel like they're untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again with any company, but you asked me for our organization. To me, it's important that everybody knows that you got to deliver, you got to bring value.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, then we got to find the right person to bring value.
Right.
So I that's some of the thoughts I have around the question of that.
I've often found in my position of leaderships, and I have to imagine it's probably amplified for you, that it can often be a very lonely position
Yeah.
sometimes because you are hesitant to sometimes build those relationships with people that you may end up having to part ways with
Right.
in the future. Do you find that to be similar?
Yeah, I think that's very true. One of the things I remember, the first when I was talking to my father in '03 about this role, he told me, he said, sometimes you're gonna feel like you're on an island.
Mm-hmm.
And I I vividly remember that piece of advice with that is so valuable, because if you are, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you can have a democratic approach to decision making, but at some point, somebody got to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
and that CEO, that leader, has to be able to make that decision, and that comes that very often will put you in an isolated place that you have to be comfortable in yourself and in your decision making.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody's not cut out for that
Yeah,
top spot.
right.
You talked a little bit about family and the pride that you see in seeing the families of those who work for you be able to advance in their career and in their personal prosperity and whatnot. Um, Talk to me a little bit about your family dynamic in the sense of what toll does it take on your family, right, to be the CEO of a major corporation, right? I got to imagine that you're not able to be at home as much as you want to be
Right.
or what have you. Talk to me a little bit about how that plays out.
Well, I mean, that all comes from experience too. I mean, when I look back at my father, who was building this enterprise, I'm fortunate enough to have a foundation, and I'm building upon that. But even when I think back to how hard he worked, and his engagement, he was still present. He was still
Mm-hmm.
present. I mean, I was an athlete in high school, and before high school, played baseball, and he certainly wasn't there all the time. But I never felt that, like, where's dad? He's never here. I didn't feel that way. So when my kids were growing up, I made it my point to be present. Now that might mean you're going to a game and you're going back to the office.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to be. You have to recognize that as a leader of a company, you always got to be willing to do more than others. So I think that's one thing. And two, I think as far as the toll, I mean, you need a partner, with you who's helping you move forward. So I've been fortunate with, my wife, Lavette, of almost 30 years, that, she has helped me be a better leader. I mean, she's, been by my side. We like to say she's smarter than I am, which is probably a fact.
Give
But
her that, give her that credit.
yeah, that's right. And so she's able to bring perspective to me, and just has been an asset. So you got to have a team. I guess at the end of the day, your family can't think one way about what you're doing. They got to take pride and own the fact that you're running an enterprise too, and be able to embrace that, and take the challenges and the blessings that come with it.
Mm-hmm. Talk to me also. So we just talked a little bit about the importance of family. Talk to me about the importance of health. I know that you have had some health issues in your past and whatnot, and it was really family that allowed you to be in the good health that you're in now. Talk to me about that experience and the importance
Yeah.
of health and entrepreneurship.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I had a kidney transplant in 2005, and my brother Jerome was my donor.
Mm-hmm.
So an incredible blessing. Blessing as anybody who's been around kidney transplants, the usually the best match is family,
Mm-hmm.
for various reasons. So we went through that process, and my wife kind of led that process too of asking people, hey, would you mind giving Michael kidney? That's a
Right.
sensitive subject,
Right.
but she was a quarterback of that. But Jerome was a good match, and thank God he was willing to donate, and we were, fortunately, my situation wasn't one where my kidney function fell off a cliff. It was something we were able to
Mm-hmm.
plan the transplant, if you will, and
Mm-hmm.
and it went well, and again, it's been now 15 years in September,
Mm-hmm.
so I've been incredibly blessed. Jerome would say to you that it's been an incredible blessing to him, and we like to call it the gift of life. I mean, and it's really made us closer, and always have created a bond that certainly will always be there.
Right. That's beautiful. He didn't try to hold out for family dinners at his house for the next 10 years or something like that.
No, no, fortunately he didn't, but it is something that I'm always very appreciative of.
Okay. So one of the things that is present today, right? And you've been doing a marvelous job on social media talking about what's going on in society today. But we ran into really a situation that I don't think anyone saw coming, first of all, with COVID-19, right? That led to an unprecedented shutdown in the economy. Then that barrels into uh, historic unemployment rates, right? And then that barrels into um, really the culmination and the breaking point of murders of individuals at the hands of the police that has created this 90-day period of time that is just I don't know if the country has seen that since maybe World War I or something like that, right? But you are leading an enterprise while all this is going on. How has that impacted you from a leadership standpoint? What have you had to bring out of your leadership skills? What have you had to be innovative around from a company perspective? Talk to me about how you're managing this situation.
Well, it's difficult. I mean, I think from various fronts. From the business point of view, it's frustrating. I mean, we run a company where diversity is considered a strength, and we want it. I mean, and that's just who we are. We run a company where growing um, black businesses is something that we value. I mean, we've been able. My father, he birthed a lot of companies out of H.J. Russell through people coming through the organization, and those with that entrepreneurial zeal, growing and doing their thing. So what this has done is made me kind of say, well, what do we stand for? And um, I did put out a message around some key objectives that we stand for in this, which is really about diversity as a strength. We're going to double down on how do we make sure that we're bringing diverse suppliers and vendors along and giving them an opportunity. Employ from an employment perspective, we want to give everybody an equal opportunity to grow, be it black, white, gay, straight. We want to have an environment where if you come to H.J. Russell, that you can be all you can be. And we also, with the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which is all about growing black businesses. And how do you take a business that's 2 people to 10 people, and creating the ecosystem and the support network and all the things that you need to help that business grow. So all of those things we have just said. I mean, that's what I want to do. That's what we have to do. And on top of that, with my white colleagues out here, I've been very vocal to say that silence today is you're complicit. If you're silent today with all that's going on, even if you feel like you're doing X and Y, if you're with your friends and you see or hear things, if you're in your company, and these are mostly leaders, if you're in your company and you know, even though your mind is in the right place, where's your procurement department?
Right.
Where's your HR department? Where are they as far as making sure that people get an equal opportunity, that black people get an equal opportunity? So I am not trying, I'm being more vocal in having those conversations and also trying to create some forums around where these discussions can be had in a safe environment with black and white business people. That's where I'm focusing my energy is around business leaders because
Mm-hmm.
you hear a lot about social injustice, you hear a lot about political things, but I'm focusing on the economic
Mm-hmm.
injustice and how do we start to change that? Because whenever you start moving, as I say, moving the chips around the table,
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be some angst and consternation around people. But that's really what it's about too. How do we allow black people and black businesses to be able to participate in a more significant way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I firmly believe, and this is why I started this podcast, that the business of America is business. And while we do need to simultaneously and in parallel attack the social justice issues, if we don't figure out this economic piece of the
Yeah,
puzzle, the advantages or the gains that we win, I think are going to be short lived.
right. I agree.
We've got to tackle it from the economic standpoint. Um, what are you excited about for the next 5 to 10 years with H.J. Russell and Company?
Well, I'm just excited about the fact that even though we have had success over the years, we still have a lot of upside. I still think that we, frankly, we haven't performed as well as we can. And I'm excited that as I look into the 2020s, that it's going to be a very pivotal, important time for our organization. And I'm excited. I'm blessed with the energy and the drive, and I think I'm building the right team around me that we can really make a much more significant impact as a business organization, than we are today. And secondly, as a leader in this city, I'm excited that I'm in a position to make an impact too in making Atlanta just a better place and a more open place. What we're going through right now, I would like to think opens the door to move this city forward and move the country forward. But I'm thinking specifically around, I'm here in Atlanta. How can I be more impactful? And even other places I work. I have a office in Dallas that is important to us and me. And Dallas is a city that I think needs more. It needs more companies like H.J. Russell involved in it to help build the ecosystem of black businesses. So I'm just excited, Troy. I'm just excited about where I think we can go because by no means do I think we have tapped out. I think we have a lot more upside and a lot of potential that we can exercise into real productivity.
Great. So we just discussed what you're excited about. What scares you right now?
Well, I think what we're going through right now with the with the tensions and the injustice that we see and our political environment. If you look at it right now, I'm concerned that it could get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what impact will that have on this country? So that concerns me. I'm always concerned about young black people. I mean, I want these young black people to see a future and to have more of us in a position to succeed than position to fail. And I think we have to continue to stay engaged with our young people and just keep them in a mindset of being productive and being entrepreneurial because the day of big corporations is ending. I mean, so I think young people have to be more entrepreneurial, more nimble in how they build a skill set. So young people, particularly black young people, this environment we're in today, and always concerned about the economy, but ultimately, I think the economy of America, again, with us, being able to to bring more people to the table will continue to grow and be, prosperous.
And so, if you were able to uh, give them the business to the next generation of young people coming up, especially would be black entrepreneurs and or business leaders, what would you tell them are two or three of the key ingredients that they need in order to be successful?
One, refine the skill that you have and be excellent at it. Two, be willing to step outside of your own box and meet people and expose yourself to things that you might not think would interest you. And third, I would say just be nimble. Understand that what you're doing today, you might not be doing 2 or 3 years from now. So always be willing to learn and grow. And if you have that mindset, and you'll be fine. And the last thing I would say is, as you heard me mention earlier, just do what you say you're going to do. After a while, your reputation does not go away. So if you get the reputation of talking more than you deliver, that reputation will stay with you, and it's going to keep you out of some opportunities that you could have if you just work consistently to do what you say you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. And talk to me a little bit before we leave about how you are continuing your father's legacy outside of the company with the H.J. Russell Innovation and Entrepreneurship
Yeah.
Center.
Okay. Well, the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship is a nonprofit venture that the Russell family has started up, but sustainability is going to bring in many other partners. But we've taken our old headquarters building, which was a 50,000 square foot building. We put it in a nonprofit, and the sole purpose of that structure, and we have the program and we're building the program, and it's all about growing Black entrepreneurship. I mean, that is the focus,
Mm-hmm.
and we want to. So we have a CEO for that for the organization. We have a CEO for the organization. We're building up our staff, but at the end of the day, we're creating an ecosystem again where African Americans can come to the Russell Center and be a part of the ecosystem that allows them to be successful, and allows them to not make some of the same mistakes that others made, and allows them the opportunity to interface with other entrepreneurs, and have access to other of the skill sets that you need to take your business and make it sustainable for many years to come.
I'm very appreciative that you all are doing that. When I was in college, in an entrepreneurship class at Morehouse, Dr. Kimbrough's class, to be exact, your father came and taught to my class and told his story of how he got started, and some of the lessons that you just imparted, he imparted as well. And I remember going into your old headquarters building for the first time, and just being um, in awe of what he was able to accomplish and build and bring others along with him. And so I'm very appreciative that you are keeping that legacy going, and because he was all about bringing other people
Right.
along, and you all are doing the same thing. And I think that's more of what we need. Again, focused on that economic and entrepreneurship
Right.
piece, because ultimately I think that's going to be how we make some real gains.
Right. Right. We agree, and I think what we're going through right now, when you think about just the economics of America moving forward, I think entrepreneurship is going to be very critical, and Black people need to be a part of that,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to understand that that's how you can grow wealth. That's how you can control your own destiny, and that's how you can make a real impact.
Mm-hmm. Well, Michael, I appreciate you joining Giving the Business. Don't stay away for too long. We'll have you come back maybe next year or something like that, and give us an update on how's it
Great.
going.
Great, Troy. Thanks for having me on. I
All right,
enjoyed it.
sounds good.